Today we're tackling mental health with Kaiser Permanente, and I'm here with former DC United player and my current coworker, Devon. Thank you for being here today.
Of course, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So you were drafted in 2006. MLS looked a lot different than it does now in 2021. Jobs were a little less secure. I think players at that time maybe had ended around that time, but players were having like 2 jobs around that time. How was it for you being in MLS at that time when your job is a little unstable?
There's always in the back of my mind, while obviously 99% of me was focused on soccer and focused on DC United, of what's going to come next. How I approached what was next was literally to just putting my fingers into everything, talking to different people, different organizations, different companies, and so having said that, the transition, it's always a difficult one. It wasn't the most glorious or smooth of transitions.
And I mean, even back then, it's the same as it is now, where being a player, you know, you kind of have a lifespan of maybe your career ends a little bit earlier than most normal jobs, right? As a player, you never know what's going to happen with your contract. Mentally, does that affect the way that you go into training every single day? Does that affect, you know, when you're going to sleep at night, getting ready to go to training the next day?
So, yeah, certainly does. I mean, I know, you know, with the professional mentality, every day is going to be, you know, your top level. That's what you envision going into training, going into games. But knowing in the back of your mind that if I'm not getting minutes, if I'm not performing well, that they could just release me at any time, there's certainly some concern involved with that. I remember, you know, players I played with like struggling with that and having conversations with recruiters trying to figure out what was next while they're still trying to play the professional game. So it does weigh on you. I mean, in terms of the pressure of being a professional athlete, not only in terms of producing in front of 20,000 people, but for performing on a daily basis, because you know that someone, even though you're teammates, someone's right behind you trying to take your position. And so mentally, it can be exhausting, it can be draining, and so it's just always so important to, you know, I feel like make sure when you're in that position to have self-confidence in yourself, but also talk to people, talk to the staff, talk to the trainers, anyone that you can about, you know, what can I do to improve, because I'm not ready for it to end, or I may be ready for it to end, and now what's the next phase? And so it's always something that's kind of, I know players won't always admit that it's in the back of their mind, but it's you know, it's pretty far back there, yeah.
When did you know that it was time for you to retire and time to make that transition post-player life?
I had a bad head injury in 2011 in preseason, and that was my second bad head injury, and so you start to, a seed of doubt starts to creep in a little bit, right? When you don't recover within 3 days, and you don't recover within 3 weeks, and you'd seen some other players that you had played with going through the same thing with symptoms, and in those days you weren't really making enough to never work again. Not only was I concerned about my career ending, I was also kind of concerned about long-lasting effects of having repeated head injuries. And so with meeting with doctors and stuff, I called it. I said, we don't need to do this anymore. I don't feel comfortable playing. I mean, I couldn't play at the time that I actually officially retired, and I wasn't cleared to play. And so then for me, it was about focusing on getting healthy and then figuring out what the heck to do with my life, because you spend, you know, since I was 5 years old, all I wanted to do was kick the soccer ball.
What would be your advice to players who are getting to that point of having to make that transition post being a player?
The conversation that people kept coming back to me with was, I love the character that playing a professional sport gives you, but you don't have any experience. You don't know Excel, you don't know Word, you don't know, you know, and so what do you want to do? And it's like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I did what I wanted to do, now where to go next. So mentally trying to determine what the next phase is, how I'm going to approach that next phase, who I'm going to talk to about that next phase, it's difficult. And then, you know, for me personally, combined with rehabbing and trying to get my head back to a spot where I could go outside and not have terrible migraine headaches because of people walking around me, combine that with trying to figure out what the next phase of my life. There were some dark moments certainly, and you know, it never was easy, and I kind of just took it day by day and eventually kind of chipped away at it, and there was a lot of ups and downs of that and trying to figure out who I was, and I'm still figuring that out. And I think, you know, that's a journey for everyone throughout their professional careers and their life, but you know, I found something now that I feel like I'm pretty good at and I enjoy, and while still keeping my foot in the sport a little bit, if you will.